Coming towards this, we already have seen ages and nodes, right? Now, where does the state? Okay, तो हम लोग डिस्कस कर रहे थे लैंग ग्राफ के components. लैंग ग्राफ components. So coming towards this, we have seen states and ages and nodes. अभी हम लोग देखने वाले state. So use case state, we can define something like, okay. So here this state will have some value, right? या फिर some variable. We can define some variable, and will that variables can be accessed by any of these nodes in this particular graph. Okay. So let's say for this particular use case, you know that I require transcript. So I go ahead and create a transcript variable. As soon as this node is executed, the output will be saved in this particular variable. So let me just go ahead and write it down over here. So state means what? Whenever we define any state, okay, our main aim is that whatever variable जो हम लोग define करते हैं, let's say one of the variable that I want to derive is, let's say, transcript, because जैसे ही मैं execute करूंगा ये node, my transcript gets generated, right? And this transcript will also be required in my third node यहाँ पे. So what I'll do, जब मैं state create करूंगा, this will have information about the transcript, right? Similarly, title is my second output that I really want, because here in this node, I want to go ahead and write down title. Title information will be saved. Then you have content. So let's say you go ahead and create this three variable. As soon as we generate those, we can save this. Okay. And the advantages of saving these values inside this will be that inside this entire graph, every node or any of this node will be able to access this variable. Okay. So that is the importance of state. Okay. And this entire graph, we basically say it as state graph. So that is the reason we say it as state graph, because it able to maintain the context of the state and every node. Every node is, don't get confused with external memory or memory, right? So memory can also be used over here, right? So here we want to focus more on the state. It is able to maintain the state in this particular thing, right? Now we got a clear idea about the components of LangGraph. Now what we'll do is we'll build a basic chatbot. In this basic chatbot, what we'll do, I'll be having a start. From this start, I'll create a one node. Let's say this particular node is nothing but a chatbot. And from this, we'll go ahead and end it. Now this chatbot will be integrated with some kind of LLM plus prompt, and the work is take the input and give the output. So this is a basic chatbot what we are going to build. And as you go ahead, we'll go ahead and add tools, external tools. We'll go ahead and add how we can integrate these external tools along with this chatbot. Then as we go ahead, we'll again discuss about the React agent. React agent is something which is more amazing with respect to tool. I know there are lots of topics that we have, but let's now focus on understanding how to build this basic chatbot. So for this, we'll again go back to the code, and for this, we'll try to understand what is state graph, what exactly is node, and ages. So step by step हम लोग करेंगे अभी. As usual, what we are going to do is that, first of all, before starting building a chatbot using state graph or graph API, first of all, we'll go ahead and import some important libraries. Okay. So one important library is something called as from typing import annotated. I'll talk about annotated. What exactly is annotated is, it is just to add context specific metadata towards a type. Okay. It is better that I show you an example in order to make you understand. One more important library that I want to, you know, use is typing underscore extension import type dict, yeah, right? Now, along with this, since you know that every graph starts with a start node and end with a end node. So for this, I'll go ahead and write this from langgraph.graph import state graph. Since we need to go ahead and also create a state graph. State graph will be the entire graph, right? Entire graph that you have seen over here. If I want to represent this entire graph, we can represent it with the help of state graph. And then comma, start, and we'll also have end. Start and end are just like my start node and end node. Along with this, we'll also go ahead and add from langgraph.graph.message import add underscore messages, right? Then let's go ahead and execute this. Okay. Now we have imported all the libraries. You may be thinking, "Ki, what exactly this add underscore messages?" Okay. What is this exactly add underscore message? So these are called as reducers. These are called as reducers. देखो ये क्या है? These are called as reducers. So what is the importance of reducers? Okay, I'll talk about it. So let's say that if I want to create this chatbot, right? If I want to create this chatbot, you know that we also have the state, right? In this state, what is a kind of variable that I really need to create so that any output that is generated by the chatbot will be saved in a one variable itself. So let's say I go ahead and create a variable called as messages. Inside this messages, can I make it as a list type? As soon as I keep on asking any input, automatically it should keep on getting appended. So let me repeat it what I'm trying to say over here. Let's say अगर मैं कुछ एक बेसिक चैटबॉट क्रिएट कर रहा हूँ, right? As soon as I give input, it is able to generate the output, right? But as soon as but again, uh, if I give another input, this graph will again get executed and you will get the output. So we can execute this graph as many number of times. So when we are creating this state graph, okay, state graph, every conversation can I save that inside my state, which will be available to this particular node at this particular time? Yes. So for that, we'll create one variable. We'll make it as a list type. We'll create one variable. We'll make it as a list type. And inside this list, we should keep adding this message. When I say adding, it should be appending these messages. It should not replace the previous message. Okay. When I say replacing the previous message, let's say in the first insert, I have one message. I said, "Hi, how are you?" Then the chatbot replied, "I am good." Then my next question is, "Hey, tell me what is the name?" The chatbot replies, "Hey, I do not have any name. I'm just a basic chatbot." So this message should not get replaced, right? Instead, it should get appended as every conversation goes ahead. So we'll be able to maintain this information, and that is the reason we say it as state graph. Okay. So in order to probably append, we can use something called as reducers. Okay. One of the example of reducers is that different types of reducers we can specifically use. One of the reducers is nothing but add underscore messages. Now this add underscore messages, what it's going to do is that its work is only to add a message instead of replacing any kind of variable that we define. Right? So अभी मुझे जाने दो आगे और हम लोग एग्जीक्यूट करते. Now I'll start I'll write class state. Here we'll write class state is equals to, and here we're going to use this type dictionary. That basically means this state class is going to return type of a dictionary, right? So here let me just go ahead and provide you some basic doc string so that you'll be able to understand कि कैसे हम लोग क्या कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे. So you can see messages have type list. So add messages functions in the annotation defines how the state key should be updated. In this case, it appends messages to the list rather than overwriting them. I hope everybody has understood why we are inheriting type dig, because this state is going to return, right? This class is basically going to return of this type. That is nothing but dictionary type. So if you see what is this, it is a simple type dict, and runtime is nothing but a plain dictionary, right? Runtime is nothing but a plain dictionary. Okay. So if I just go ahead and write on class point 2D type dict, then x equals to integer, y is int, label is string. So what we can go ahead is we can provide values in the form of dictionaries, right? Key value pairs. X equals to 1, y equals to 2, label equals to good. Something like this. Now, in the next step, what we are going to do is that we create a next variable. So let's say messages. Inside this messages, we'll go ahead and use annotated. Now, annotated is like a kind of a label. Okay. This annotated class we have inherited, or we are basically writing. It is nothing but it indicates the hypothetical runtime check module, uh, type is unsigned integer module, and every other consumer of this type ignore this metadata and treat this type of integer. So if you see some of the examples, you should really able to understand these are the something like in Python what exactly this basically means. So inside this, I would say, hey, you have to go ahead and add the messages inside the list type with the help of add underscore messages. So with the help of this add underscore messages is called as reducer. Please remember this information. When we say reducer, that basically means not going to replace this list. Not going to replace a list with respect to any conversation that is happening. Okay. Instead, it is going to append. So if you see how the state key is updated, you can see it append messages to the list rather than overwriting them. So this is a basic information, but I'll show you how this looks like as we go ahead, because we'll go ahead and display this with respect to the state. Now I'll go ahead and build my graph. So in order to build my graph, let's say I'll, you know, I'll use the graph builder. I'll create graph and I'll I'll give this class. Okay. That basically means when I give this specific class over here, this state graph, when we are creating the entire graph, at any point of time, we can provide the specific information to our different nodes. Okay. So this basically becomes my graph builder. I'm going to go ahead and show you graph builder. It is of a type state graph. So my state information has got completed. Now in the next step, what we are going to do is that we are going to build our entire graph itself. We are going to go ahead and build a graph. So हम लोग नेक्स्ट वीडियो में ग्राफ बिल्ड करने वाले. सो हम लोग क्या करेंगे, अभी रिक्वायरमेंट डॉट टी एक्स टी में एक लाइब्रेरी ऐड करेंगे, दैट इज पाइथन डॉट टी एन वी, सिंस वी आर गोइंग टू गो अहेड एंड यूज ग्रॉक मॉडल. तो आप ओपन एआई मॉडल भी यूज कर सकते हैं. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down UV and add minus R requirement जो भी है. So once I go ahead and install this thing, once I go and install this thing, you can see that now we can go and quickly import all the libraries that we want. So I'll go ahead and write import OS, and then I'll go ahead and write from load from .env import .env load underscore .env, right? And then we are going to go ahead and initialize this load underscore .env. So the reason why we are doing is that whatever keys we specifically write, in your .env, it should be able to load it. So हम लोग यहाँ पे .env फाइल भी create करेंगे. So the next step that we are going to specifically do is that whatever key that we specifically want with respect to the Grok API, it will paste it over here. So we'll do that. Okay, so we'll stop here for the day. In the next part, we'll just deal with the grok models and all those things and see the output. So that's what we have for this video, guys. Thank you for listening to this. Take care and happy learning. Bye.